The autumn wind was cold that night. Han Ti-ho walked slowly through the dark forest, his boots crunching on the fallen leaves. He was 23 years old, thin and tired, but his eyes were sharp. He had just finished his military service 2 months ago and returned to his small village in the mountains of South Korea. The year was 2009. The village had only 12 families. Most young people had left for the cities long ago, but Ti-ho stayed. His parents were gone and he had only a small house and some land. He grew vegetables and sometimes worked odd jobs in the nearby town. It was a quiet life, a lonely life, but it was his. He was walking home from the town when he saw it. A bright light streaked across the sky. It was not a shooting star. It was too big, too bright, and it was falling fast. Ti-ho stopped and watched as the light crashed into the mountain with a terrible sound. The ground shook beneath his feet. Birds flew from the trees in panic. For a moment Ti-ho stood frozen. His heart was beating fast. Every instinct told him to run home and hide, but something else pulled at him, something deeper. He ran toward the crash. The smoke was thick and black. Trees had been knocked down in a wide circle. In the center of the destruction, Ti-ho found something he could not understand. It was a machine, but not like any machine he had ever seen. It was shaped like a seed, silver and smooth, but now it was broken and burning. Ti-ho covered his mouth with his sleeve and moved closer. The heat was intense. He could hear crackling sounds from inside the wreckage, and then he heard something else. A voice, weak and desperate. He climbed over the broken metal and looked inside. What he saw made him stop breathing. There was a woman, but she was not human. Her skin was silver blue like moonlight on water. Her hair was white as snow. She was badly hurt, blood that looked like liquid starlight pooling beneath her, and in her arms she held a child. The child was small, maybe 10 years old. She had the same silver skin, the same white hair. Her eyes were closed and she was shaking with fear. The woman saw Ti-ho. Her eyes went wide with terror at first, then something changed. She looked at his face, at his eyes, and she seemed to understand something. She opened her mouth and spoke. The words were strange, but a small device on her wrist glowed and translated them into broken Korean. "Please," she said, "take my daughter, keep her safe." Ti-ho did not think. He did not ask questions. He simply nodded. He reached into the wreckage and carefully took the child from the dying woman's arms. The little girl was light, almost weightless. She opened her eyes and looked at him. Her eyes were violet, deep and beautiful, and filled with tears. The woman touched her daughter's face one last time. She whispered something in her own language. Then her hand fell and she was gone. Ti-ho held the child close. He could feel her trembling against his chest. He did not know what she was or where she came from. He only knew that she was alone and afraid, and that he had promised to protect her. He carried her through the forest. The walk to his house took 30 minutes, but it felt like hours. The child did not make a sound. She just held onto his jacket with small, desperate hands. When they reached his house, Ti-ho laid her gently on his bed. He lit the old stove to keep her warm. He cleaned her wounds as best he could with his military medical training. She had cuts and bruises, but nothing too serious. She was lucky. The child watched him with those strange violet eyes. She did not speak. She did not cry. She just watched. Ti-ho made some rice porridge and offered it to her. At first, she did not understand. But when he took a small bite himself to show it was safe, she slowly began to eat. For 3 days, they lived like this. Ti-ho did not go to town. He did not talk to anyone. He stayed with the child, feeding her, keeping her warm, talking to her even though she could not understand his words. He showed her books with pictures. He pointed at things and said their names. "Moon," he said, pointing at the sky through the window. "Stars, night, home." She listened carefully to everything. Once she tried to repeat a word. "Home," she said, her accent strange and beautiful. Ti-ho smiled. It was the first time he had smiled in a long time. On the third night, she finally cried. She woke up screaming, calling for her mother in a language T-Ho did not know. He held her and rocked her gently. He did not have the right words, so he hummed an old song his own mother used to sing. Slowly, the child calmed down. She fell asleep in his arms. T-Ho stayed awake all night, holding her. He made a silent promise. No matter what happened, he would keep her safe. On the fourth night, everything changed. A low hum filled the air. The ground vibrated. T-Ho looked out the window and saw lights descending from the sky. Another ship, much larger than the first, was landing in the field behind his house. His blood went cold. He grabbed his grandfather's old hunting rifle. It was the only weapon he had. He stood in front of the child, ready to fight. The door of the ship opened. Tall figures emerged, wearing armor that gleamed like liquid metal. They carried weapons that glowed with strange energy. One of them stepped forward, scanning the area with a device in his hand. The child ran past T-Ho before he could stop her. She stood between him and the soldiers and held up her small hands. "Friend," she said in Korean. It was one of the words he had taught her. Friend. The soldiers stopped. They looked at the child, then at T-Ho. The leader removed his helmet. His face was like hers, silver blue and sharp. He spoke into a translator. "You protected the princess," he said. "You a human, why?" T-Ho lowered his rifle. He looked at the child, at her tear-stained face, at her hopeful eyes. "She needed help," T-Ho said simply. "What else was I supposed to do?" The soldier stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly he bowed his head. Before they took her away, the child ran back to T-Ho. She pressed something into his hand. It was a small crystal, glowing with soft blue light. She looked up at him and spoke in her own language. The translator on the soldier's wrist picked up her words. "I will come back," she said. "I promise, wait for me." Then she was gone, carried into the ship by her people. The vessel rose into the sky and disappeared among the stars. T-Ho stood alone in his field, holding the crystal. The night was silent again. The wind was cold. He looked up at the stars and wondered if he would ever see her again. Then he went inside, made himself some tea, and tried to convince himself it had all been a dream. But the crystal in his hand still glowed. And somewhere in his heart, he knew she would keep her promise. 15 years passed like water flowing down a mountain stream. Han T-Ho was now 38 years old. His hair had some gray in it. His face had more lines. But his eyes were still kind, and his hands were still strong from working the land. He lived in the same small house in the same small village. Most of the old families had moved away. Now only 5 families remained. The village was quiet, almost forgotten by the world. But T-Ho did not mind. He had his persimmon farm, his vegetables, and his simple routines. Every morning he woke up before sunrise. He made himself rice and soup. He fed his chickens. He walked through his orchard and checked his trees. In the evening, he read books by lamplight or listened to old songs on his radio. It was a peaceful life, a good life. Sometimes, late at night, he would take out the small crystal from its place on his shelf. It still glowed, soft and blue after all these years. He would hold it and remember that strange night long ago. The burning ship, the dying woman, the frightened child with violet eyes. Had it really happened? Sometimes he was not sure. The memory felt like a dream, fading more each year. He never told anyone about that night. Not his sister, not his neighbors, not anyone who would believe him. He barely believed it himself. But he kept the crystal, and sometimes when he held it, he felt warm inside, like someone somewhere was thinking of him too. It was a cool autumn evening when everything changed. T-Ho was sitting on his porch, drinking tea and watching the sunset paint the mountains orange and gold. The air smelled like fallen leaves and ripe persimmons. It was his favorite time of year. Then the sky went dark. He looked up and felt his heart stop. Something huge was blocking the stars. A shadow, vast and silent, was descending toward his farm. The air hummed with energy. His teacup rattled on its saucer. A ship, but not like the small one from 15 years ago. This was enormous, beautiful, shaped like a crescent moon made of silver light. It moved with impossible grace, lowering itself into his field. His persimmon trees bent under an invisible force. The ground trembled. Tiho stood up slowly, his old knees aching. He was not afraid. He was too surprised to be afraid. The ship touched down without a sound. A ramp extended from its side, glowing with soft light. Figures emerged one by one. They were tall and armored, carrying weapons that shone like captured starlight. Soldiers, at least 20 of them. They formed two lines, creating a path from the ship to where Tiho stood. Then she appeared. Tiho forgot how to breathe. She was tall now, graceful like a willow tree. Her silver-blue skin seemed to glow in the fading light. Her white hair flowed behind her like a river of moonlight. She wore robes that shimmered with colors he had no names for, and on her head sat a crown of crystal and light. But her eyes were the same, violet, deep and beautiful. The eyes of a frightened child who had lost everything, now grown into something powerful and magnificent. She walked toward him slowly. The soldiers watched in silence. The whole world seemed to hold its breath. She stopped a few steps away from him. For a long moment, she simply looked at his face. Her eyes were wet with tears she was trying not to shed. Then she spoke. Her voice was clear and musical, and she spoke perfect Korean. "Han Tiho," she said, "I told you I would return." Tiho stared at her. His mind was spinning. 1,000 thoughts crashed together like waves, but in the end only one thing came out of his mouth. "Would you like some tea?" Behind her, one of the soldiers made a confused sound. Another whispered something urgent. But the woman, this empress, this queen of the stars, did something unexpected. She laughed. It was a small laugh, gentle and warm. It broke through all the tension and ceremony like sunlight through clouds. "Yes," she said, "I would like that very much." Tiho nodded and turned toward his house. "Come inside, then. It is getting cold." He walked into his simple home like nothing unusual was happening, like he invited alien empresses for tea every evening. The soldiers looked at each other in confusion. Their commander, a stern-faced man with scars on his silver cheeks, stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he said in a low voice, "is this wise? We have not secured the area. We do not know if this human is dangerous." The Empress turned to him with a look that could freeze fire. "Commander Oren," she said calmly, "this man saved my life when I was a child. He fed me, protected me, and asked for nothing in return. He held me when I cried for my mother. If you question his honor again, you will answer to me." Commander Oren's face went pale. He bowed deeply. "Forgive me, Your Majesty." She followed Tiho inside. The farmhouse was small and old. The walls were wooden. The floor creaked. There was a simple table, a few chairs, some books, and the old iron stove that Tiho had used for 20 years. It was nothing like a palace. It was nothing like anywhere an empress should be. But Lyra Vel sat down at the table and looked around with wonder in her eyes. "It has not changed," she whispered. "I remember this room. I remember that stove. You kept me warm when I was dying from cold." Tiho put water on to boil. He took out his best tea cups, the ones his mother had left him. They were old and slightly chipped, but they were clean. "You have changed," he said quietly. "You were so small then, now you are," he paused, searching for the right word, "important." Lyra smiled sadly. "I am the Empress of the Velen sovereignty now. My mother was the heir to the throne. When she died, I became next in line. I was raised in the palace, trained to rule, taught to be strong. But I never forgot this place. I never forgot you." She reached into her robes and pulled out something. Tiho's heart clenched when he saw it. It was a drawing, old and faded, done in colored pencils on yellow paper. A simple picture of a house, a mountain, and two figures, one tall, one small. "I drew this when I was 12, she said. "I kept it with me always. Through every hard day, every challenge, every moment when I wanted to give up. I would look at it and remember the human who was kind to me when he had no reason to be." Tiho did not know what to say. He poured the tea with steady hands, though his heart was not steady at all. "I am just a farmer," he said. "I did what anyone would do." Lyra shook her head. "No, you did what very few would do. My people watch your world, Tiho. We have studied humans for a long time. Your kind is young. Your technology is simple. Many of my advisors think humans are primitive, not worthy of attention. But I know better. I know that among the stars there is no one quite like you." She took a sip of tea. Her eyes closed and she smiled. "This is good," she said. "Better than anything in my palace." Tiho almost smiled, almost. Outside, the soldiers waited. The ship hummed quietly. Somewhere above, the stars watched in silence. But inside the little farmhouse, an empress and a farmer drank tea together. And for the first time in 15 years, Tiho did not feel alone. "So," he said finally, setting down his cup, "why did you really come back? I do not think it was just for tea." Lyra's smile faded. She looked down at her hands. "No," she admitted. "It was not just for tea. I came because I need your help, Tiho, and because, according to an ancient prophecy of my people, you are the only one who can give it." The wind outside grew colder. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called out into the night. Tiho looked at the young empress, this child he had saved who had grown into a queen. "Tell me everything," he said. And she did. The tea grew cold as Lyra told her story. Her mother had been running that night 15 years ago, running from assassins sent by a rival house, a powerful family called the Vel Torak. They wanted the throne for themselves. They had killed many members of the royal family already. Lyra's mother was trying to reach a safe world when her ship was damaged and crashed on Earth. After Lyra was rescued, she was taken back to her home world. She was only a child, but she was also the last heir of the royal bloodline. The elders protected her. They trained her. They prepared her for the day she would become empress. That day came 2 years ago. Lyra took the throne at the age of 23. But the Vel Torak had not given up. They had been waiting, planning, building their power in the shadows. Now they were ready to strike again. 3 assassination attempts had already been made on Lyra's life. Her closest advisor had been found poisoned. Ships loyal to her were disappearing in deep space. Her empire was fracturing. Her enemies were growing bolder, and Lyra was running out of people she could trust. "My people have a sacred law," she explained. "It is called the bond of debt. When someone saves your life without asking for anything in return, you owe them a debt that can never be truly repaid. It is one of our oldest traditions. The bond between us is recognized by every court, every temple, every law." Tiho listened quietly. He understood duty. He understood honor. But he did not understand why any of this involved him. "I am grateful," he said carefully. "But I am just a farmer. I know nothing about empires or wars or politics. What can I possibly do to help you?" Lyra reached across the table and took his hand. Her fingers were cool and soft. "There is something else," she said. "Something I did not understand until recently. The crystal I gave you that night, do you still have it?" Tiho nodded. He stood up and took the crystal from its shelf. It was glowing brighter now than it had in years, pulsing with soft blue light. Lyra's eyes widened when she saw it. "I knew it," she whispered. "The priests were right." She explained that the crystal was not just a gift. It was an ancient artifact, one of the sacred bonds of the first empress. There were only 3 in existence. When given freely to another person, the crystal created an unbreakable connection between them. But there was more. Her people had an old prophecy, one that dated back thousands of years. It spoke of a time when the Empress would face her darkest hour. In that moment, an uncrowned guardian would stand beside her. Someone with no title, no power, no royal blood. Someone marked by the sacred bond. The priests had studied the prophecy for generations. They never knew who the guardian would be or where they would come from. But when Lyra told them about the crystal she had given to a human farmer 15 years ago, everything became clear. "You are the guardian," Lyra said. "The prophecy points to you." Ti-Ho stared at her. Then he looked at the crystal in his hand. Then he looked back at her. "I do not believe in prophecies," he said slowly. "I am not special. I cannot fight armies or stop assassins. I can grow vegetables and fix tractors. That is all I know." "That is not all you know," Lyra said firmly. "You know how to be brave when you are afraid. You know how to be kind when it costs you everything. You know how to stand between danger and an innocent person. Those are rare things, Ti-Ho, rarer than you think." Before Ti-Ho could respond, there was a knock at the door. He opened it to find Commander Oren standing outside, his face tense with worry. Behind him, the soldiers were moving quickly, checking their weapons. "Your Majesty," Oren said, "long-range sensors have detected ships entering this system, Vel-Torak ships, at least 6 of them." Lyra stood up quickly. Her face became hard, the face of a ruler. "How did they find us?" "Unknown, perhaps a spy, perhaps tracking technology. It does not matter, we must leave now." Lyra turned to Ti-Ho. "Come with me, please." Ti-Ho hesitated. He looked around his small house, his simple life. Everything he knew was here, everything he had built. But then he thought of the little girl he had held 15 years ago, the way she had trusted him, the way she had promised to return. She had kept her promise. Now it was his turn to keep his. "Let me get my jacket," he said. They were almost at the ship when another person came running through the fields. Ti-Ho's heart dropped when he saw who it was. His sister Kang Su-bin. She was 32 years old, a journalist from Seoul. She visited him every few months, always complaining that he lived too far from civilization. She must have arrived while he was talking with Lyra. "What is happening?" she shouted, staring at the enormous ship, the alien soldiers, the Empress in her glowing robes. "Ti-Ho, what is all this?" "It is a long story," Ti-Ho said. "Go home, Su-bin, this is not safe." "Not safe? There is a spaceship in your field. You are walking into it. I am not going anywhere until you explain what is going on." Commander Oren stepped forward. "We do not have time for this. Your Majesty, we must go now." But Su-bin grabbed Ti-Ho's arm. "I am not letting you disappear into space without me. If you go, I go." Ti-Ho looked at Lyra helplessly. The Empress studied Su-bin for a moment, seeing the fire in her eyes, the stubborn set of her jaw. "She is your family?" Lyra asked. "My younger sister." Lyra nodded. "Then she comes with us. Family should not be separated." They boarded the ship just as lights appeared in the sky above. The enemy had arrived. Inside the ship, Ti-Ho felt like he had stepped into a dream. Everything was smooth and glowing. The walls seemed to breathe with soft light. There were no buttons or levers, just flowing symbols that responded to touch and thought. Su-bin was speechless, which was rare for her. She turned in slow circles, trying to take everything in. "This is impossible," she whispered. "This cannot be real." "It is real," Ti-Ho said. "I know. I had the same thought 15 years ago." The ship rose silently into the sky. Through a window, Ti-Ho watched his little house grow smaller and smaller until it was just a dot among the mountains. Then the clouds swallowed it and it was gone. Commander Oren approached them. His attitude toward Ti-Ho had changed slightly since Lyra's words, but he was still suspicious. "We will jump to lightspeed soon," he said. "The Vel-Torak cannot follow us through a fold jump. We will be safe." "Where are we going?" Su-bin asked. "To the Empress's flagship." From there to the diplomatic station where Her Majesty is expected for the Summit of Houses. It is the most important gathering in a decade. All the noble families will be there. Including the Veltorek, Tiho asked quietly. Commander Oren's face darkened. Yes, including them. They would not dare to miss it. They want to look like loyal subjects while plotting in the shadows. Tiho nodded slowly. He understood now. The summit was not just a meeting. It was a battlefield, and Lyra was walking into it with enemies all around her. He looked down at the crystal in his hand. It was glowing brighter than ever, warm against his palm. He did not believe in prophecies, but he believed in protecting people who needed help. He had made a promise 15 years ago. He would keep it no matter the cost. Commander, he said, tell me everything you know about these enemies, their strengths, their weaknesses, their tactics. Oren raised an eyebrow. You are serious. You want to help. I am serious. If I am going to stand beside the Empress, I need to understand what we are facing. For the first time, something like respect flickered in Commander Oren's eyes. Very well, he said. Come with me. We have much to discuss. Tiho followed him into the depths of the ship. Behind him, Subin watched her brother walk away. She had always known he was special. She had always known there was something more to him than a quiet farmer in the mountains. Now she was beginning to understand what that something was. The stars streaked past the windows as the ship jumped to lightspeed. A new chapter was beginning, and nothing would ever be the same. The diplomatic station was the size of a small city, floating in the darkness between stars. Tiho stood at a window on the Imperial flagship and stared at it with quiet wonder. The station was shaped like a flower, with great petals of metal and light extending from a central core. Ships of all sizes moved around it like bees around a hive. Some were as small as cars, others were as large as mountains. The Summit of Houses happens once every 10 years, Commander Oren explained, standing beside him. All the noble families send their representatives, trade agreements are signed, alliances are made, and sometimes old grudges are settled. Tiho nodded slowly. He had spent the 3 days of travel learning everything he could. The Velen's sovereignty was vast, spanning hundreds of worlds. It was ruled by the Empress, but real power was shared among the great houses. Each house had their own armies, their own wealth, their own ambitions. The Veltorek were the second most powerful house. They had never accepted Lyra's claim to the throne. They believed the crown should have passed to them when the old royal bloodline ended. They had been waiting for the right moment to strike. That moment was coming. The summit is their best opportunity, Oren said. The Empress will be surrounded by potential enemies. If they can eliminate her and blame someone else, they can seize power before anyone can respond. Then why is she going? Tiho asked. Oren sighed. Because she must. If she does not attend, she looks weak. The other houses will lose faith in her. She will lose allies. The Veltorek want her afraid. She refuses to give them that satisfaction. Tiho understood. Lyra was brave, perhaps too brave, but he respected her choice. The summit began the next day. Tiho was not allowed in the main hall where the houses gathered. He was just a human, an unknown species from a primitive world. But Lyra arranged for him to watch from a hidden balcony above the chamber. The hall was magnificent. Crystal pillars rose toward a ceiling that showed the stars themselves. Representatives from dozens of houses sat in curved rows, their robes and armor reflecting their family colors. At the center, on a throne of pure light, sat Lyra. She looked calm and powerful, but Tiho could see the tension in her shoulders, the slight tightness around her eyes. She was carrying a heavy burden. The head of the Veltorek was a tall, thin man named Lord Keth. His face was sharp like a blade, and his smile never reached his eyes. He spoke smoothly, with false respect and hidden venom. "We are honored by the Empress's presence," he said, and we renew our pledge of loyalty to the throne. May her reign be long and prosperous." The words were correct, but his tone made them sound like a threat. Lyra thanked him graciously. She spoke of unity, of peace, of working together for the good of all. Her voice was steady and strong. The other houses listened with respect. For a moment, Tiho thought everything might be all right. Then the lights went out. Chaos erupted in the darkness. Shouts, screams, the sound of energy weapons firing. Tiho leaped from the balcony without thinking, landing hard on a table below. Pain shot through his ankle, but he ignored it. Emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in red. The hall was a battlefield. Masked assassins had appeared from hidden doors, attacking the Empress's guards. Commander Orin was fighting 3 of them at once, his sword a blur of silver. And Lyra was surrounded. 4 assassins had her cornered near the throne. Her personal guards lay on the ground, wounded or dead. She had drawn a small blade, but she was not a warrior. She was a leader, a diplomat, a scholar. She was going to die. Tiho moved. He did not think about the odds. He did not think about his own safety. He only thought about a little girl crying for her mother and the promise he had made. He grabbed a fallen guard's weapon, a heavy staff that hummed with energy. He did not know how to use it, but he knew how to fight. The military had taught him that. His muscles remembered. The first assassin never saw him coming. Tiho struck him in the back of the head, dropping him instantly. The second turned and raised a blade, but Tiho was faster. He blocked the strike and drove his elbow into the assassin's throat. The third and fourth attacked together. Tiho took a cut across his arm and another across his ribs. The pain was fire. Blood soaked his shirt, but he did not stop. He stepped in front of Lyra, putting his body between her and the blades. "Get behind me," he said through gritted teeth. The assassins hesitated. They had expected soft targets, not a bleeding human who refused to fall. Commander Orin arrived like a storm, cutting down one assassin with a single stroke. Loyal soldiers followed, pushing back the attackers. The tide was turning. But the battle was not over. Lord Keth appeared on a balcony above, his face twisted with rage. "Kill them all," he screamed. "Leave no witnesses." That was his mistake. Somewhere in the station, Subin had been watching everything. While the fighting began, she had found her way to the communications center with the help of a young officer who was loyal to Lyra. She was a journalist. She knew how to tell a story. More importantly, she knew how to broadcast one. Every screen in the station flickered. Every communication channel was hijacked. And suddenly, every world in the Velan sovereignty was watching Lord Keth order the assassination of their empress. The evidence was undeniable. The conspiracy was exposed. Lord Keth's allies abandoned him immediately. The other houses, seeing their choice clearly, declared their loyalty to Lyra. Vel Torak soldiers dropped their weapons and surrendered. The assassins, finding themselves alone, tried to flee. They did not get far. When it was over, the hall was silent. Bodies lay everywhere. The crystal pillars were cracked and stained with blood of many colors. Tiho sat on the steps of the throne, holding his wounded side. His vision was blurring. He had lost a lot of blood. Lyra knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. "You fool," she whispered. "You brave, stubborn fool, you almost died." Tiho managed a weak smile. "I am hard to kill. Ask my sister. She has been trying for years." Lyra laughed through her tears. She pressed her hands against his wounds, and her palms glowed with soft healing light. The pain began to fade. "The bond," she said, "the crystal bond, it connects us. I can share my strength with you." Tiho felt warmth spreading through his body. His vision cleared. His strength returned. Not completely, but enough. Commander Orin approached and bowed deeply. His armor was dented. His face was cut. But his eyes were full of something Tiho had never seen there before. "Respect. "I was wrong about you," Orin said simply. "You fought like a warrior of the old stories. I'm honored to stand beside you." Ti-Ho shook his head. "I am not a warrior. I am just a farmer who does not know how to give up." Across the hall, Lord Keth was being dragged away in chains. He screamed and cursed, promising revenge, promising destruction. But no one listened. His power was broken. His house was finished. Later in the medical bay, Su-bin found her brother. She punched him in the shoulder. Then she hugged him so tight he could not breathe. "Never do that again," she said, crying. "Never scare me like that again." "I cannot promise that," Ti-Ho said honestly. "But I can promise I will always try to come back." Su-bin pulled away and looked at him with red eyes. "You really are the guardian, are you not, from the prophecy?" Ti-Ho looked down at the crystal, which hung now around his neck on a simple cord. It was glowing steadily, warm against his chest. "I do not know about prophecies," he said. "I just know I could not let her die. I could not let any of them die. That is all." Su-bin smiled sadly. "That is what makes you special, brother. You never see it in yourself, but everyone else can see it clearly." Outside the window, the stars shone peacefully. The crisis was over. The Empress was safe. The conspiracy was destroyed. But Ti-Ho knew this was not the end. There would be more challenges, more dangers, more moments when he would have to choose between safety and doing what was right. He looked at the stars and made his peace with that. Some things were worth fighting for. Some people were worth protecting. And as long as he had breath in his body, he would not stop. The throne world of the Velan sovereignty was the most beautiful place Ti-Ho had ever seen. Mountains made of crystal rose toward purple skies. Rivers of light flowed through valleys filled with flowers that sang when the wind touched them. Cities floated among the clouds, connected by bridges of woven starlight. Everything was ancient and magnificent, built by a civilization that had mastered the secrets of the universe. And all of it now bowed to Lyra. The victory at the diplomatic station had changed everything. The Vel-Torak conspiracy was completely exposed. Lord Keth faced trial and was stripped of all his titles. His house lost their power, their lands, their influence. The other noble families, seeing how close they had come to disaster, pledged their loyalty to the Empress with new sincerity. Lyra's rule was finally secure. A grand celebration was planned. The entire sovereignty would honor the Empress and the heroes who had saved her. Representatives from every world gathered at the Imperial Palace. It was the largest celebration in a century. And at the center of it all was a simple farmer from Earth who wished he was back in his persimmon orchard. Ti-Ho stood in a grand hall filled with more people than he could count. Aliens of every shape and color surrounded him, speaking in languages he did not understand. Servants offered him food and drink on floating trays. Nobles bowed as he passed. He had never felt more uncomfortable in his life. Su-bin, on the other hand, was having the time of her life. She had been given access to interview anyone she wanted. Her recording device captured everything. She was already planning the book she would write about this experience. "Can you believe this?" she whispered to Ti-Ho. "We are at an alien palace. I talked to a being made entirely of light this morning. They communicate through colors." "I'm happy for you," Ti-Ho said flatly. Commander Orin appeared beside them, wearing ceremonial armor that gleamed like polished silver. He had become something like a friend in the weeks since the summit. At least, as close to a friend as the stern warrior allowed himself to have. "It is almost time," Orin said. "The Empress will announce the honors now. You should prepare yourself." "Prepare myself for what?" Orin almost smiled. "Almost, you will see." The hall fell silent as Lyra entered. She wore robes of pure white that seemed to contain their own inner light. Her crown had been replaced with a simpler circlet, elegant and graceful. She looked like a painting come to life. She took her place on the throne and spoke to the gathered crowd. Her voice carried easily, filled with warmth and authority. "My people," she said, "we have faced a great trial. Enemies within our own ranks tried to tear apart everything we have built, but we endured, we survived, and we emerged stronger." The crowd cheered. Lyra raised her hand for silence. "This victory was not mine alone. Many brave souls fought and sacrificed. I wish to honor them now." She named the soldiers who had fallen. She honored the loyal nobles who had stood against the conspiracy. She thanked Commander Orin for his courage and service. Each name was met with applause and respect. Then she turned her eyes to Tiho. "And now," she said, "I must speak of someone special. Many of you know the prophecy of the uncrowned guardian. For generations, we wondered who this figure would be, where they would come from, what kind of being could stand beside the Empress in her darkest hour." She stepped down from the throne and walked toward Tiho. The crowd parted before her like water. 15 years ago, I was a frightened child. My mother was dead. My ship had crashed on a strange world. I was alone, hurt, and certain I would die." She stopped in front of Tiho. Her eyes were glistening. "And then a human found me, a poor farmer with nothing to his name but a small house and a kind heart. He took me in. He fed me. He protected me. He asked for nothing. He expected nothing. He simply saw a child in need and decided to help." She reached out and took his hand. Han Tiho is not a warrior. He is not a noble. He holds no title and commands no armies. But when assassins surrounded me, he threw himself in front of their blades without hesitation. He nearly died to keep me safe. Not for glory, not for reward, simply because it was the right thing to do. She turned to the crowd. "This is the guardian the prophecy spoke of. Not a great hero of legend, but a simple man who does what is right even when it is hard, even when it costs him everything." The hall erupted in cheers. Beings who had looked down on humans as primitive now looked at Tiho with new eyes. Lyra raised her hand again. "For his service, I offer Han Tiho the highest honors of our empire. I offer him lands, titles, wealth beyond measure. I offer him a place at my side as my chief advisor and protector." The crowd waited. The offer was extraordinary. Any noble in the sovereignty would have given everything for such an honor. Tiho looked at Lyra. He looked at the beautiful hall, the magnificent palace, the endless stars outside the windows. Then he shook his head. A murmur of shock passed through the crowd. Lyra's eyes widened. "Thank you," Tiho said quietly. His voice was calm and steady. "I am honored more than I can say, but I cannot accept." "Why not?" Lyra asked. Tiho smiled gently. "Because I did not save you for a reward. I saved you because you were a scared kid who needed help. That is all. I do not need titles. I do not want power or wealth. I just want to go home." He looked around at the grand hall. "My persimmons will be ripe soon. If I do not harvest them, they will fall and rot. My chickens need feeding. My house needs repairs before winter comes. These are small things to you, but they are my life. My simple, quiet, ordinary life. And I love it." The hall was silent. Lyra stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly tears began to fall down her cheeks, but she was smiling. "You are the most stubborn man in the galaxy," she said. "My sister tells me that often." Lyra laughed softly. She released his hand and stepped back. Then, to the shock of everyone watching, she descended to her knees before him. The crowd gasped. An empress kneeling before anyone was unheard of. "Then go home, Han Tiho," she said. "Live your simple life. Grow your persimmons, feed your chickens, be at peace." She reached up and removed a ring from her own finger. It was a small thing, silver and plain, with a tiny crystal at its center. "But take this with you, so that a part of me is always with you, and so you know that wherever you go, whatever you do, you have a friend among the stars." Tiho took the ring with trembling hands. He slipped it onto his finger. It fit perfectly. "There is one more thing," he said. "Name it." When you have time, come visit. Bring your own tea, though, and maybe some of that engine fuel your ship's use. I think it might work in my tractor." The Empress of 1,000 Worlds laughed. It was a sound of pure joy, ringing through the hall like bells. "I will visit often," she promised. "You cannot escape me that easily." 3 days later, Tiho was home. His little farmhouse was exactly as he had left it. The persimmon trees were heavy with fruit. The chickens clucked happily when he fed them. The mountain wind was cold and clean. Subin helped him with the harvest. She was already writing her book, though she had to change many details to protect the secret. She made it a fiction, a story about a farmer who befriended a foreign princess. People would read it and think it was just a tale. Only the two of them would know the truth. A month after his return, on a quiet evening, Tiho heard a familiar hum. He looked up to see a small ship descending into his field. It was not the great flagship, just a personal vessel, sleek and elegant. Lyra stepped out wearing simple traveling clothes. No crown, no robes, just a young woman coming to visit an old friend. She was carrying a basket. "I brought tea," she said, "and some fruit from my homeworld. I thought you might want to try it." Tiho smiled. "Come inside, the water is already hot." They sat on his porch as the sun set behind the mountains. They drank tea and ate strange alien fruit that tasted like honey and sunshine. They talked about everything and nothing. The crystal on Tiho's shelf glowed softly. The ring on his finger was warm. Above them, the stars came out one by one, ancient and endless. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders. Empires rose and fell. Great powers clashed among the stars. History was written in fire and light. But sometimes, the most important stories were the quiet ones. The small acts of kindness that rippled outward forever. The gentle souls who changed everything by simply being good. Han Tiho was not a warrior or a hero or a legend. He was just a farmer who had been kind to a lost child. And that kindness had changed the stars. In the end, that was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.